All right, Councilwoman, we are live.
All right, great. Well, welcome. We're still hoping to have a couple of other our voting members join us this afternoon, but would like to open the Human Resources Committee of the Council on June 3rd at 1 o'clock. And I'll open with a little prayer for our welfare. Please bow your head with me. Lord, we just thank you that we can trust that you are present whenever we ask, and we always do. Help us to pay attention to your wisdom. Help us to listen well to one another, and especially to appreciate all of the work that goes into making these meetings productive and constructive. We look forward to any decisions that are made today and the work that will be done on behalf of our city employees. In your name we ask, amen. All right, we have minutes that were circulated to us for August 20th, 2020, which is the last time.
Move for approval.
Is there a second, Del Chapo? She's on mute. I'll second. I don't know if that's appropriate, but I'll second. And I'll say we're in favor.
Aye.
I think I'll just take a second to explain if anybody's listening in. This committee meets as needed. We don't have a standing date like some of the other standing committees do. We try to do the work in response to our human resources strategies and goals. And obviously, as we get closer to budget season, then we join in with Kay Cross and her staff to make sure that we're in correspondence with what the Human Resources Department is recommending to the council as far as employee benefits and anything else that we want to be putting forward to the full council for budget approval. Welcome, Mayor. Good to see you. All right, well, let's go on. We've got a lot of topics that are informational and educational for us. As background, I know for some of the decisions we'll be making in correspondence to the budget. So take it away, Director Cross.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. This is mostly going to be just an informational meeting, discussion, just some things we wanted to share with you guys as we approach budget season and prepare for our August meeting where we'll
Okay, can I interrupt you 1 minute? Councilmember Brady, Carl Brady just joined us too. So welcome,
yep, sorry.
Councilmember.
Hi, Councilmember.
Had a meeting run over, I'm in the car.
No problem. We had conflicting Zoom links too, so that's been a little challenge. All right, go ahead, Kay. Thank you.
Okay, so we wanted to start with just sharing a COVID-19 update with everyone. Ryan, can you put that slide on the screen?
We have it.
Okay, so to date, we've had 286 positive cases. We have conducted 1,394 contact traces as a result of those. We have had approximately 1,300 total COVID tests as a result of those traces that we have done. We have, as you know, MUSC set up a vaccination clinic in the old DMV site over on Lockwood, and MUSC graciously allowed us to schedule our employees for vaccinations back when it was difficult to get those appointments. We were able to assist 274 employees in getting a vaccination appointment. We allowed 2 hours of paid admin leave per shot for employees to encourage them to get their vaccine. We also provided a $50 cash incentive for employees to receive their vaccination. We have now, if you have your vaccination and you sent copy of your vaccination card to HR. We have had these vaccination verification cards printed. And as you know, employees who've been vaccinated are no longer required to wear masks, which has been very, very popular. I know I enjoyed it, not wearing a mask continuously. But we've had 881 employees who reported that they have been vaccinated. So we're just a little over 50% reported vaccinated employees. And to be honest, I know that number is a little bit low because I know we have employees who they just haven't sent us the verification. Anecdotally, I would say we're probably more at 60%, which I think is pretty good. So we have really, we've pushed very hard because we do believe in the CDC guidance and the information coming from DHEC that that's the only way that we're going to come to an end of this is to get everyone vaccinated, or at least I guess some percentage of vaccinated employees where we can get to some type of herd immunity. So we're very supportive of that. We've also sent out a lot of information, answered a lot of questions for employees. In general, we're pretty pleased with where we are right now. We know that we could do better, and I'm still getting vaccination cards in. I got one this morning from a police officer who had been vaccinated a month ago. We just hadn't sent in his card. So I expect that, our numbers will look even better. But I also wanted to share with you, just if you look at the chart with the hours of leave, as you all probably know, the federal government mandated some paid leave for employees, different types of personal leave and caretaker leave, child care leave. When the pandemic, first became a reality for us last year, the chart shows you how many hours of that leave employees took and what that cost us to provide that leave. That mandated leave ended December 31st. We fully expected them to extend it because obviously the pandemic was not over the end of December, but for whatever reason, it was not extended by the federal government. So we decided that as an organization, we thought it was important to extend that paid leave because we were obviously still having positive employee cases. So the 2021 numbers that you see, the city COVID leave, we paid out 7,771 hours for a total cost of $145,759. The COVID, we did end our COVID leave program April 30th of this year. And as of right now, today, we have no positive employee cases. I'm happy to report.
That's great.
I think Amy's on the call too. I think that we did get some reimbursement for these hours. Is that correct, Amy?
We did for 2020. We will not get any reimbursement for 2021.
Okay.
Speaking for myself, bravo to the city. I do feel like that was a huge benefit that our employees have earned just to stay as safe as possible.
Thank you. I agree. So,
Should I ask for questions? Does anyone have any questions of Ms. Cross on this topic? COVID leave, COVID stats? Well, great. I happened to be in the mayor's office yesterday, so I was trying to be a cheerleader for a couple of staff people there who haven't gotten their vaccination yet. And so hopefully we'll just keep encouraging each other.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate everyone's support. As I said, I'm feeling we're definitely not out of the woods yet, but feeling better about where we are as compared to this time last year. So we'll move on now to the next slide. The next topic on the agenda: employee demographics. We just Ryan compiled these numbers for us. I just thought it might be interesting for you guys to see kind of where we are. The first chart you'll see it has average tenure of employees based on non-sworn, sworn, the police department, fire department, and the grand total, average age, the average annual salary, and the median annual salary. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. So as you can see, we have a fairly what I would consider young workforce. And then the chart below that, you can see we break it down, or I should say Ryan's report breaks it into non-sworn, sworn by gender and by ethnicity. And where you see below the double line, that's the current stats for the Charleston metro area, which is kind of what you'd like to compare yourself to, because your workforce should be reflective of the stats where you live. So we feel like that we're doing, for the non-sworn, we feel like we're doing pretty good. For sworn, I think there is some work to do. And I think that Chief Curry and Chief Reynolds are both taking this very seriously. They both have plans in place. I know Chief Reynolds has a recruitment team working on it. And Carol, as I shared with you when we talked, the fire department has actually created a recruitment manager position. They've hired Captain Kevin Weeks. He's been with the fire department for some time. It's an African-American captain who I feel like we feel like he has good ties to the community, or at least that's our understanding. And we're hoping he's going to be able to build a program so we can start working on some of the numbers in that department. So I feel like even though we definitely aren't where we need to be, I think that we're taking steps and we're making progress. But this is a snapshot of where we are right now.
So does anyone have any questions about what they're seeing from the demographics?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, okay. Is it possible at some point for us to get the breakdown of salaries by race, non-sworn and sworn?
Absolutely. Yes. And Ryan, I think Ryan did something similar to that not too long ago. It wouldn't take him very long to update it. I think maybe we could probably get something to you by next week.
Okay, because I do remember you did sort of share something with us in that regard some time ago.
Yeah, we
like,
do it by pay grade.
Yes.
How you like to see it?
Yes.
Yes,
please.
And then maybe make sure that we see the pay ranges for each pay grade, just for those of us who aren't that familiar.
Okay, absolutely.
I know that the Commission on Women would love to have that kind of information for themselves too, so that'd be great. Any other questions? So I just want to make sure that when we're seeing the non-sworn and sworn, those are only our two public safety departments, right? PD and fire department. And then citywide is everybody else.
That's right.
Is that the way we should think about it?
Yes. And in fire and police, that we are talking truly sworn, because particularly the police department, they have a good many non-sworn employees, more so than the fire department. They have a good many admin people.
Yeah.
Just as a
and then when the Charleston metro area is that's not just governments, right? That's all workers around the whole area.
Yes.
And just as a point of clarification on the demographics, so the non-sworn number is essentially everybody else. So that would be the like our staff in our office, for example, are considered non-sworn employees. Okay. The sworn number is the combination of PD and FD. And then the citywide number is actually the total combined of all public safety, non-public safety. That's the everybody combined.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's good to know. All right, great. Any other questions, comments?
I mean, and Councilmember Jackson, and then the next two slides are really the same information, just in a graph form. I think maybe it makes it visually. This is just a way to look at it.
Okay, great.
Okay. If no one has any questions about those slides, we'll move on to employee turnover, and I'm gonna let Ryan kind of explain to you, because Ryan's been tracking this for us since he's been here. As you know, we've been before you before with these same charts and graphs. The last time we met, we were happy to report to you that it seemed our turnover was trending down, but unfortunately we are trending back up again. So I'm gonna at this point turn it over to Ryan and let him explain this chart to you.
Okay, thank you.
So for turnover, our starting chart is looking at voluntary turnover through May of each year. So as much of a sort of apples to apples comparison as we can get. So this is January 1st through May 31st of 2014, 2015, up through 2021. 2021, there's a little bit of a sort of troubling trend, especially in the non-sworn, where we've seen our non-sworn turnover through May, sort of this number up here, spiking back up to the highest number that we've been looking at for this sort of measurement period. We have seen police turnover increased a bit through May in 2020, but we've seen that number come down drastically. Fire, we saw a small drop in 2020. We've seen that number come up a little bit. In general, for 2020, we see that COVID did have an impact on our turnover. For most departments, we saw a sort of generalized decrease. For police, I think with some of the events they had going on, they saw a slight spike, but we're seeing their numbers kind of come back together. But this increase for the non-sworn is a little bit of a concern. It's almost a percentage point higher than what we had seen through May. And for the next slide, so for this, we have voluntary turnover projected through year end. So for 2014 to 2020, it's actual turnover. So in 2020, we can see that we had the sort of generalized drop due to COVID. But so far for 2021, and with our prediction for 2021, we're generally expecting non-sworn to kind of go right back up to the level that we'd identified in 2018, where we were having some issues. So in 2018, non-sworn turnover was at just over 18%. Our 2021 projection similarly has us coming up to 18%. And that's with the caveat that the projection doesn't always handle extremes particularly well. So if we look at how the May number had increased, our projection kind of conservatively averages that back down. But if we were to maintain that kind of a trend, we'd be looking at non-sworn voluntary turnover likely cresting at about 20%. And sort of the 2 years where we have seen that general increase, 2020, we saw the increase with COVID. 2019, when we did the last major pay plan increase, we did see turnover generally decrease. But those have been sort of our only two instances at this point. And just as a sort of, for the sake of mentioning, we typically look at voluntary turnover since that's the one that we have more control over, but we wanted to at least mention the total turnover. So this is sort of all combined sources of turnover. Again, the non-sworn trend is a little bit of a concern in that we essentially were averaging almost 20% of our non-sworn employees leaving in any given year. And our projection has us essentially back on track to reach almost 22%. So we'd be looking at almost just 1 out of every 4 non-sworn employees. So that's non-police officers, non-firefighters, essentially turning over this year.
So, Kay or someone, do you all have some, early like takeaways, anecdotal conclusions on why we're seeing these increases again?
So we do have some information on exit surveys that we've been doing as well that should shed some light on sort of at least the reasons that are being reported to us.
And what were some of them?
So
the slide, Ryan, or is that too far down?
Yeah, well, we can skip ahead to that momentarily. So just to mention on the exit surveys, these are the results. We only really started the exit surveys more in earnest at the end of 2019. So this data is from January 1, 2020 to current. The 3 most common reasons for leaving are family circumstances, which is this gray column. We have no room for growth as the second, essentially tied for second with pay. So pay and no room for growth are the second highest here. The family circumstances are kind of the top, and then we see a major drop off to some of the lower ones, with the next sort of most common option being general work environment, and then dropping down to things like 13.7% were no longer working or were exiting the workforce. So essentially something like a retirement.
So is the 19.6, is that the commute is too long? Am I looking at the colors correctly, or?
So that would be the work environment.
Oh, that's the work environment. Okay.
So the commute too long is this 3.9%. So it's not a very common option. Not a good fit is about a 10%. Then we have the family circumstances. Around 2% chose to go back to school full-time instead. About 11% noted communication problems. About 4% noted work pace. Then we have the no room for growth schedule being this browner one. Pay, again, in the higher categories. About 11% all said it wasn't the field they wanted to work in. 2% being workload. Then we have the no longer working category, the work environment, work relationships, benefits, and then decline to answer. So with our exit surveys, we have about a 43% response rate, which is frankly not too bad for this kind of a thing. We're working on ways to kind of keep that number up, but at least half of the people that we've sent these to essentially are doing it. So they should be fairly representative. In addition to letting employees pick sort of the reasons for leaving, we then ask them to sort of rank their top reasons to kind of see exactly what's the weighting, what is the biggest contributor out of those reasons. Again, we see family circumstances, pay, room for growth. Since they were the top, they tend to be the top ranked, but they are also sort of overwhelmingly the top ranked. So pay and room for growth are all trending very closely. Family circumstances kind of just leading the way. And then a very steep drop down to work environment, which was ranked usually about half as high as any of the first three, and then steadily down through sort of going back to school, workload, work pace, commute, benefits being sort of the bottom 5 reasons.
Ryan, has this been broken down by department?
So we do not have it at a department level to sort of simplify the exit survey and to maximize people doing it. We use as little identifying information as possible. So we don't necessarily have it at a department level. With a good enough response rate, we would probably say that you could project this kind of response across most departments.
So do you know the jobs that are being, that they're leaving? I mean, is there some conclusion about the no room for growth? I mean, those are more of the lower paying jobs, entry level jobs, that kind of thing, or what?
So it does tend to be a little more across the board. The city historically doesn't have a ton of room for growth, and in a lot of the room for growth category, we do have some follow-on questions. So for people who picked room for growth as a reason, 63% of those people did say that they were leaving to take a promotional opportunity somewhere else, with 37% of people, so just over a third of people, saying they were actually accepting a similar role somewhere else, but one that provided more growth opportunities. So it's not necessarily just strictly the promotions, but even people who are staying in their same role, but going somewhere that could provide more future growth. We also have some information on pay. Essentially, out of the people who said pay was an issue, approximately 2% said they were leaving for an extra $1 an hour. 17% said they were leaving for an extra $3 to $5 an hour. Another 17% said they were leaving for an extra $5 to $10 per hour. And fully 58% of the respondents claiming pay being an issue said they were leaving for $10 an hour or more.
And then do we assume that those jobs are private sector? I'm assuming the $1 an hour. I know anecdotally we heard about people leaving the city for the county,
Madam
$1
Clerk,
extra.
point of order, Madam Clerk.
I'm sorry.
I think that we're supposed to be speaking in turn and recognize, and no one is to speak if someone hasn't spoken on the issue. Just want to make sure that we're procedurally moving correctly. Because it
Thank you,
sounds,
Councilmember. I apologize. I'm not able to see most of you, say, just interrupt. Councilmember Gregory.
Mayor and Amy in particular, this seems like a pretty serious issue to me. And maybe I'm overreacting. But if our workforce is exiting, we also have a hiring freeze. How is morale? How is work getting done?
You asking the question,
I'm asking the question because I think I think these numbers, at least for me, are pretty serious. And I'm just trying to find out whether or not it is having an effect on morale, number one, because the jobs still have to get done. We're in a hiring freeze. They didn't get a COLA, I think, last year. So I'm just trying to figure out what can we do to reverse this.
well,
Councilmember Gregory, or I'm sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
I was just going to point out our total employment number is about the same. So we have been replacing folks when they leave. And in essence, I would say the freeze is over. Folks who request from budget and finance and human HR to fill a position, we're mostly approving those to go forward. So I'll admit to you, we have a dedicated staff, and when things get short in their department, they step up to the plate, they get the job done. I've heard very few reports of us falling behind, and that's where just a small group of reviewers maybe serve one function, and you lose one guy or two personnel, and it makes a big difference in their being able to get the production done until we get those people replaced. But overall, I'd say our staff's just done a remarkable job during this whole pandemic and during the freeze to cover where they were needed, and it's been pretty remarkable. That being said, I would love to be able to propose in our budget next year, a cost of living adjustment and even more, but we have to see where the numbers come in. We do have the opportunity perhaps to do, with some of the federal relief we had to do a small bonus this year in order to make up for the fact that we didn't have a COLA this year. But, council will have to weigh those priorities. Amy, am I missing anything?
I guess this is a question to Kay. Have we assessed the morale at all of staff? I mean, given we've had a hiring freeze, given that people are voluntarily leaving, there's got to be a shortfall somewhere, and people are picking up and making sure that the job gets done. But in that environment, as a manager, okay, people tend not to be very happy. They'll do it, but they're not happy. And it can create morale issues. And I'm just trying to see whether or not we have a sense of whether or not any of that exists so that we can address it.
Councilman Gregory, we have not conducted any type of survey that would include morale, any kind of measurement of morale. The last thing I saw that we did, I believe in January of 2020, NOVAC released a full survey that included a lot of issues that would fall under the morale issue. But nothing, to my knowledge, has been done this year. And I'm not sure if NOVAC is going to be doing that for us again this year. Amy, can you answer that question?
No, they're not doing that this year.
Okay. I will say, as far as the hiring freeze, the mayor is absolutely right. yet there is a hiring freeze, and that departments have to provide, some really good justification to fill a position. Having said that, budget, Amy has been working with departments on filling positions that were critical that we really needed to have done. So because we have been hiring, I don't know if you've looked at our postings lately, but we're definitely hiring. So it's not like a hot, what I would consider a hard freeze. And Amy, I don't want to speak for you, but it appears to me that with just the requisitions we're getting approved and what we're filling, the departments are not, even though we're having this turnover, which is problematic because it's difficult for the departments, it's difficult for the supervisors, it does seem that we are filling the critical positions that we need to continue city services.
So the freeze is still on, though. We just have exceptions.
It is still on, yes.
Okay.
And we do hold positions, but they do have to provide a justification. And in some situations, we know that we have to go ahead and let that position go. But we are holding positions for sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Councilmember. Are there any other comments or questions from our membership? Councilmember Brady or Del Chapo?
I'm good.
All right, let's move on. Thank you.
1 second as PowerPoint has crashed.
Of course.
Let me just go back to the freeze, because if you remember too, we budgeted a $7 million salary saving. So we have to meet that number. So that's why the freeze will continue, because we have to make sure we meet that number. Otherwise we'll be over budget.
That was my understanding. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the next, while Ryan is pulling up the PowerPoint again, the next item on the agenda was the new recruitment applicant management system. I just want to start by thanking you guys for approving that for us. I think it's going to vastly increase our ability to run reports on our recruitment efforts. I think it's going to be easier for departments to hire. It's going to route forms. There we go. Going to route paperwork to the hiring supervisors and hopefully make the whole process easier for everyone, which will help. And Heather, do you want to talk a little bit about the
Sure. Ryan, if you'll go to the next slide, this is just to kind of give, hang on, back up one. Just an idea in talking through kind of the positions as people are leaving. The other issue that we are facing is that we're not getting the number of candidates for these positions that we had previously. So if you look over the last 5 years, going back to 2017, the average number of applicants we have per day per position has significantly decreased. We experienced that within our own office within the last few months with a benefit specialist that we had recruited for in 2017. Just for example, back in 2017, we had 19 applicants per day for a total of 95 applications in a 5-day period. This year, we've received 1.6 applications per day for a total of 42 applications in a 25-day period. And of those, really only 3 even were remotely qualified for the position. And so when we started noticing that, Ryan started running some numbers just to look at, we're seeing this across the board, and you can see there in the categories. These are the categories on our pay plan. We're having this issue across the board. So less people applying for positions, which makes it difficult to fill. With the new system, if you want to go to the next slide, Ryan, NeoGov, we anticipate that will make the recruitment cycle a whole lot faster, easier on both the hiring manager, processing the forms. We will be able to automate all of that, the requisitions, the approvals, the job offers. The candidates will have an easier time in applying with the self-service portal. They can set up a profile for the types of positions they're interested in and get automatic emails when those positions become open to alert them to apply. There will be tools there for scheduling interviews and also for screening applications, which will help the hiring manager. So they can set up questions on the front end. For instance, if the position requires you to have a valid driver's license or maybe a CDL, you could have that as a screening question. Depending on their answer, it would route them on for consideration for the position, which would help in kind of speeding up that process for the hiring manager, giving them more time to focus on getting interviews scheduled and getting somebody on board. And also dashboards, reporting, and tools that we just don't have that capability in the current system. The current system is much more focused on the city's website, and kind of the applicant tracking is sort of a secondary product they have. This is really product is focused solely on applicant tracking, and is the system that the state uses. And most other local governments, when we survey them about their jobs, they use this system as well. And it will also allow us to put our job descriptions online so that everybody can access those either at home or at work. We're using their onboarding system too, which we've struggled with this, to be honest, over the last year with COVID and not doing in-person orientations. This will allow us to have them do a lot of the paperwork that we spend the majority of the first day that they are with us completing, do a lot of that online ahead of time and submit that to us electronically. And that way we can focus a lot more on the first day with the city on really just orienting them to our organization and their new role, instead of pushing, 50 pieces of paper at them. Also having videos online, online orientation videos that they can watch prior to coming to the city. So we think that all around this will be a much better system for both the hiring managers, the applicants, and for the people who touch the administrative part of recruiting, our office budget, et cetera. And we plan to roll this out in August. We are transitioning from our old system, probably starting in the next few weeks, and would like to have a goal of launching this in August.
Are there questions from the committee members? Comments? So this was budgeted for this current fiscal year, correct? 2021?
It went to council several weeks ago, and I think it was an increase to what was budgeted for the old system.
Question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Gregory.
If the application pool has declined that much, and it sounds like it's pretty significant, what do we think is the reason for it? Is it that people perhaps are not interested, or our pay is not enough? What do you think it is that our pool has gone down? I know we're in COVID season, and we just can't blame everything on that. But do we have any basis for why this is happening? And is this happening in other municipalities as well?
It is. We had seen an article, and I think it was in Governing in the last maybe week or two, where other public sector, or it may have been IPMA, other public sector employers are struggling with this as well. I think that some of it, is based on pay. I don't think we're necessarily competitive with even other governments, and Ryan will talk a little bit about this on the next slide. Okay, we've got a recent survey with the Municipal Association where we are seeing that we're on the low end of things. We're having to get very creative in the way that we market positions. And in certain cases, we've looked at employers that downsized last year, and even local employers like Benefit Focus, where we would send them positions if they were analyst type positions, accounting positions or HR positions. We sent to them to post on a board for the workers who've been displaced. And so just kind of figuring out different ways to touch on those candidates, and also putting things on LinkedIn. We've had some success with that, where people might not even be looking for a job, but they might be somebody who actively uses LinkedIn to connect with other people. So that kind of coming across their feed as well.
What percentage of your applicants are, can you do a breakdown by race and sex of the applicants?
Not easily in our current system, because it just doesn't have that kind of reporting capability. But that's one of the things we are excited about with this new system, is we will be able to capture that kind of data and do it easily with standard reports that they have.
I mean, why I'm asking the question is, and I don't have the data before me, but it's just more empirical, just observations. when you look at places like planning, you look at places like stormwater, okay? You don't see anybody that looks like me in the upper echelon, okay? I mean, we can just take this meeting, for example. I'm it. And I'm just trying to figure out the whys. Why aren't we attracting competent African Americans for some of these leadership jobs that we have in our city? I mean, are they applying? Let's say for engineers, for planners. Are we getting applicants? Is that the reason why things look the way they look?
To be honest, in those kind of positions, we're having a hard time finding any applicants. I think for one of the engineer positions, we maybe had 5 people apply. It's just very, very few. I will say one thing that we have used recently is a tool called Handshake. It is the application system that the colleges use. And so we have posted a number of our positions that way. And we're able to, select the colleges. We could say, X number of colleges within, 300 miles of Charleston, or colleges within South Carolina, to try and attract new graduates. Because I think in some cases for our positions, some positions may have required experience, but we are looking at trying to get somebody on board that's maybe getting their first job and trying to train them in those roles.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question or a comment? I'm just curious. The new NeoGov sounds great, and especially if it's comparable to what other recruiters use that we're familiar with. How do people wanting employment? How do they even know where to go to get into this more automated? How will they beginning in August? Will that be linked from the city website, or will it be advertised independently? What will be their access?
So it will be linked on the city's website. So currently, our current system essentially has a sort of sub page. So if you go to the City of Charleston website, there's options to find a job, which takes you to our current posting system. Okay. We also have a direct link. It's charleston-sc.gov/employment. Will take you directly to our current job board. And in essence, if we implement this correctly, we'll kind of have a seamless transition where people who would normally go to one of those pages to find our positions, the new system will have just sort of slid into place. And then a lot of our jobs also get posted out to other job boards, especially things like Indeed being one of the very big, more common options. So those positions will still be posted out there, and anyone looking to apply, when they click the link, that will then send them through to the new system. But the front-facing parts will essentially look the same.
Okay, great. All right, should we move on to the next topic, please?
Well, the next topic is employee compensation. So the Municipal Association, just in the last few weeks, they released their 2021 salary survey. So Ryan went through and matched up like positions with us so we could kind of see how we compare. Because we are, of course, trying to figure out why why our turnover is higher, why are we losing employees to positions that pay more. So we thought this might be just a good little place to start. It's other municipalities, and of course we also are losing a fair amount of employees to private sector. So this doesn't tell the whole story. But as you can see, we really, we're not at the top of the market for sure, even compared to some of these smaller municipalities. And I'll let Ryan kind of talk about how he came up with these calculations.
So as Kay mentioned, the Municipal Association provided their salary survey this year. We took the results of that survey for cities with populations greater than 20,000, which gives us a group of essentially 10 that responded that we're comparing to, being this list right here. We went through matched positions, so as much as like for like, and then compared median salaries for each of them. So for the fire department, as our first example, we matched 6 total positions that the MASC surveyed. on average, we were essentially 1.5 out of 9 respondents. So we were effectively in the top 17% of wage responses for those matched positions. For PD, similarly, we matched with 6 positions. Average rank was first out of 9, with us overall in the top 11%. For non-sworn, we matched across 44 different positions and sort of on average ended up fourth of 8, putting us kind of squarely at the 50 percentile. When for this bottom chart, we looked at essentially out of a city's positions as reported on this survey, what percentage of them were in the top 3 salaries for their position. So in the fire department, 83% of our positions were in the top third of the salaries for their positions, which is the highest out of that grouping. For the police department, we again had 83% of the top 3. The only one that we kind of surprisingly fell a little behind was North Charleston, but that is partially due to the way they're paying entry level. Police and fire, once you hit anything above the sort of entry level rank, we were pretty solidly first out of all comparisons. And then the last column is our non-sworn positions. So the blue is sort of a visual indicator of where the city of Charleston is. Anything in orange were cities that had more positions in the top 3 for that position than us. So for non-sworn positions, essentially a third of our positions were even in the top 3 salaries for that type of work, which put us behind Greenville, Greer, Hilton Head, North Augusta, North Charleston, and Rock Hill, and kind of just ahead of Florence and Aiken. Of those, we typically survey Greenville, Hilton Head, North Charleston, and Rock Hill. So it looks like we've even lost potentially a little ground to places we would not historically have looked at.
Are there any questions about this information? I guess the other observation I would make is that looking at the cities that you're ranking based on, you said population, right? It would be interesting, and we probably know anecdotally, to know the cost of living among those 12 cities were probably the highest. I know Greenville is increasing in cost of living, but I would think that we are the highest of those 12 cities, which is also a big constraint.
Maybe other than Hilton Head, I would think Hilton Head Island cost of living may be pretty high. I don't know, but I would think other than them, we probably are the highest.
Yeah, I think most people don't live on Hilton Head Island. They live in Bluffton or places like that, are a shorter commute than out to Somerville from downtown Charleston.
Right.
So, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And first, let me thank Ryan for his usual great work with statistics and information. Thank you, Ryan. Of the positions that we rank well in versus those that we don't, is there a preponderance towards the upper level management versus entry positions versus any particular part of the spectrum where we need a particular improvement?
No, sir. The responses that we found, we found positions at essentially every level that we were sort of down on. So it was everything from sort of entry level construction type work to mid-level paraprofessionals up to some more senior manager and director level positions that we were coming pretty far behind on. So it was much more of an across the board. We were truly kind of in the average. So more often than not, we were kind of sitting at a 4th or 5th out of 8 kind of level for almost all positions.
Thank you.
You're supposed to be giving us better news.
Sorry. it is much better to come to have these meetings and report great news. But I also thought we thought it would be important to at least share what we're seeing, especially in anticipation of the upcoming budget process. We're hoping that there could be some considerations to, try to move us forward a little bit with.
No, I'm teasing. For the record, I'm teasing. I do think that's very helpful for us to hear the truth and put it in context, especially with where we want to be, as well as where we know we are with communities that, are also very attractive, growing areas of the state. So it is what it is. Mr. Mayor.
Well, Madam Chair, I would just opine that this isn't all bad news. And 4 or 5 years ago, we were really concerned about the turnover in our sworn positions, and it seems to be a pretty marked improvement there. So now maybe it's a little whack-a-mole. We gave a little more attention over here. We have a little different pay structure with police and fire. I think over time that makes a difference. And it's time maybe this year for us to focus a little more on the non-sworn positions and try to equalize that. But it's good news on if you looked at those percentages, statistics on the sworn positions, which is great.
That's a good point, Mayor. Very good point.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? All right, keep on going, Ryan, or whoever.
Well, I was just gonna, Mayor, I think you probably remember in 2019 when none of us had any idea what we were getting ready to get hit with. You asked all your department heads to put together a list of goals. So I've had those here by my desk since 2019, and kind of as a reminder of what we had hoped to accomplish in 2020. Obviously, we got a little bit derailed on a lot of them. But one of the things you and I talked about, I know it's important to you. I know it's important to council. I think it's important to everyone. We'd love to get to a $15 an hour minimum pay. And I had some discussion with you and Rick, and you had both encouraged me to have Ryan start running some numbers, some proposals. What would the cost be to get there? We had originally, planned on a 3-year plan in 2019. We were hoping to get there in 2022. If we look at getting there in 2 years, it's pretty expensive. I don't know that's something that our budget will be able to absorb for next year, but I did want to show it to you what the cost would be to attain that. And that, of course, is with the increases flowing through the entire non-sworn pay plan, also adding a pretty significant increase for sworn positions to try to keep them up where they need to be. And you can see the cost going from a 2-year plan, 3-year plan, 4-year plan, and a 5-year plan, what that cost would be in year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to get to that goal. Again, I know that right now, I don't think none of us really know what our budget next year is going to look like. I know it's time that you guys will be meeting. The budget ad hoc committee will start meeting and looking at things and trying to, to prioritize the funds that we have. But I guess this is our wish list. This is we would love to see us get to a $15 an hour, minimum, and which would also, as I said, flow through the whole pay plan, provide increases. It would, I think it would significantly help us with our turnover. I think it would significantly help us in filling positions. It would be a very positive for us if we could implement. Obviously, the 2 years would be fantastic. I understand that may not be doable, but if we could even I would just like to talk to you and get your thoughts on a plan. I'd like to put a plan in place if that would be possible. At least then we would know we have something and we could be working toward that goal.
Okay, just so that I'm clear.
Councilmember, go ahead.
when we say a 15-hour minimum wage, that we're going to go up to a 15-hour minimum wage, doesn't that affect all salaries?
Yes, it does. We go up to grade 18 in our
Okay.
pay plan. So the percentage increases would have to flow through the whole pay plan in order to keep, a reasonable distance between positions and grades. Because if you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to end up having employees making almost the same, or in some cases, maybe the same as their supervisor. So to prevent compression, you almost have to flow it through your entire pay plan.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, especially since two of our committee members, council members Brady and Del Chapo, haven't been part of this pay plan evaluation or decision making. So I do think it's important for us to keep sort of everything in context that you've educated us about over the last several years on what this would look like. So it really there's no relevancy to ask how many positions are not earning $15 an hour right now, right? In terms of the keeping things without compressing them. It's an interesting fact, but it's not really the key criteria for how we would make this decision.
No, I think it's important for us to maintain our pay plan structure. And again, as the mayor asked and Ryan was explaining, our positions, it's not really just the lower level positions we're struggling with. It's the mid and the upper level positions as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you want to, in effect, devalue, those positions by compressing them.
Right.
So I think you really applying the plan to the entire pay matrix, our entire pay plan, I think it would be important. Otherwise, I think you would cause issues within the plan.
So does that make sense to everybody who's listening in?
The mayor has his hand up.
Go ahead, Mayor, sorry.
Thank you. So go back one slide, if you would, to those percentages compared to the other cities. And Ryan, I know you have the unknown of what the other cities would do over the next few years, but I'm just curious, could you apply those different 4 scenarios and come up with how we would stack up? If we put each of those scenarios in place, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Would we end up coming up to 50%, 60%, 70%? You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we can work on that.
And Mayor, if I can just add, it would be great to find out what the minimum wages are for these municipalities as well.
Correct. Did we not include Columbia on purpose, or we didn't have their information? I'm just curious, since they're comparable size.
Yeah, Columbia did not respond to the survey. So we're working with essentially the cities that did take the time to respond. So some others we would typically look at chose not to. So we were not able to see exactly where they would fall.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
That would be Mount Pleasant too, right? They must not have responded either.
Yeah, they had a changeover in HR directors. I don't know if you guys knew that could be the reason. I know they had some turnover in that position, so that could be part of the reason why maybe they didn't respond. I'm not sure about Columbia, but we could try to reach out to them individually. They just didn't respond to the municipal association survey. We could try to get that same information from them.
Yeah, I personally think that would be very helpful, especially since, we compare ourselves to those two cities regularly for other reasons. So especially Mount Pleasant in terms of having similar cost of living and, overall lifestyle.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, council member.
I think that this is going to be a very interesting discussion in the budget ad hoc committee.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to find out where we're going to get this money from.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Wharton can't wait to have that discussion.
Good.
That is correct.
So
Great. This is great priming the pump information. Go ahead, Councilmember.
I guess I'm saying all that to say is 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I think that all that's going to have to be discussed in the ad hoc committee to determine where and if we can find the money to do this. I mean, I'm talking to the choir.
Well, ad hoc and ways and means, we're all in on this one.
Talking. Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else under that topic, compensation?
Ryan, you want to go to the next slide? We can talk a little bit about, we don't really have a lot to tell you about our healthcare plan. We do have Jolene is with us today, though she can give you an update. She routinely tracks how our self-insured plan is running. So I did ask her to give you guys a brief update on where we are. Jolene?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. So I have only the data through April, and we get that information in a lag. So I don't have anything only through April. And we are currently around $650,000 under budget. The majority of that budget, the savings that we have there so far is from our usage in January, when we were pretty still going through a lot of positive cases in the COVID. And so I feel like that a lot of people were still maybe not going to the doctor for elective type situations. And so I'm not sure if that savings will last throughout the year, or if people will start getting, things like their mammograms and their colonoscopies and things, maybe that they put off from 2020 and still didn't do anything about it in January. So with that being said, it's really, 4 months is really not enough data to tell how the rest of the year is going to end up. But definitely by, when we have another one of these meetings in August or September, I definitely will have a better idea of where we're going to be for the rest of the year. I don't anticipate doing any really plan design changes, just because, we are in a financial situation where we can't really add benefits at this time. Hopefully, we'll be in a situation where we can keep premiums the same as well, though. So I guess that's my goal, is to not make any changes for next year, but we'll see what we need to do and where we end up. Does anybody have any questions about the healthcare?
Any questions, council members? Councilmember Shealy, welcome. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. And I'm sorry, I had 2 o'clock on my calendar. I apologize.
No problem.
Didn't carry over to my primary so I apologize that I'm 1 hour late. But I know that Councilman Waring has mentioned this before. People that we have insured on our health plan that are over 65. I don't know how many we have there, but having that they're eligible for Medicare, would there be something that we could look at that could be a savings for us? And I know he's mentioned that, in some of these budget meetings and things. So I thought I would bring that up and ask that question.
Well, if you're a retiree and you're over 65, you do go onto Medicare. We don't cover those retirees, but if you're an employee, we do cover you, and by law, we're required to cover you. So there's really not anything that we could do there. We are having Aon look at some options that if your spouse is eligible for another health insurance plan, what other incentives we can offer to split off your spouse, or to incentivize your spouse to split off our plan. We can look at that, but really, what Councilmember Waring had requested us to look into, we're not allowed to do by law. That's right, Kay?
That is correct. It's because the law considers it to be age discrimination.
Okay.
So you cannot penalize anyone who's Medicare eligible for being on our plan. Now we could implement a surcharge for spouses who have the option of being on maybe their employer's plan. You could implement a surcharge. You could You could say, you could put a rule in place that they can't be covered under our plan. There's several things you can do there, but the Medicare issue, which we really just, our broker Aon verified for us, we really cannot do that by law. So anyone that's Medicare eligible, 65 or over, you can't penalize them in any way.
Can we make it voluntary if they do the math and determine that what they would pay as a premium for Medicare compared to what they would be paying on the group plan to the city is a better deal for them?
Aon has advised us we cannot provide an incentive for those employees at all for if they're Medicare eligible, just because of the age issue.
Right. No, I'm not talking about an incentive. I'm just talking about helping educate people that would have, can they make it an option? If I'm 70, so if I were on the city plan and I decided that I would save money because I could sign up for Medicare plus a Medicare gap that I would pay for compared to what I'm paying for as my share of the city's healthcare plan. And then it would be my choice to not.
I'm going to go out on the limb, and our plan is significantly cheaper than that option.
That's what we found in talking with people who are retiring that are, 65 or older at the time of retirement, and they're going on to Medicare because they don't have the option for our retiree insurance, that it is more expensive because you do have to get Medicare, plus you need some sort of supplemental plan with that as well.
We have, I mean, when you go out and shop our health insurance, our plan is, it's very rich in terms of, it gives great benefits, and it's fairly inexpensive compared to going out onto the market, on the open market. So, I mean, nobody's going to go out and get other insurance. I don't think. I mean, I can't imagine that.
Maybe we could answer Councilmember Shealy's good question. I'm not expecting you to know right now, but how many people are employed at the city that are eligible for Medicare by age?
That are employees? That are, I think we looked at one point, and I thought it was like around 50. Is that right, Heather? When we looked at it last year during the budget?
I think that's right. It's not
a huge number.
No, it's not. And there's, and we're we can't do anything by law, so.
Councilmember Shealy, is that?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
But we are asking Aon to look at, other options for other spouses that we might be able to offer, because years ago, we did offer an incentive. If your spouse elected to take their insurance instead of ours, we pay the employee, I think, what was it, Jolene, $25 or $50 a pay period?
I think it was $25 a pay period, which was about $50 a month.
And that would need to be age related, right? That would be.
Yeah, that was just, But I think when we first implemented the Affordable Health Care Act, we were, we had to stop that because they said that it was against the law then to do that. So, but I think there's been a few changes and a couple different interpretations. There is some options that we have now, so we're re-looking at that, and we're trying to see what the options were and to see how much money we would save potentially by doing that. They can estimate that for us, but that would really be the only change that we would potentially do.
And it's interesting. I think we would have to actually exclude the spouses who are Medicare eligible. I don't think we could even offer them, even if they wanted the incentive. So we'd have to carve them out, or we'd risk violating that law. So, which is unfortunate.
Right, well, we'll appreciate you doing your homework, when it comes time to giving some budget advice. So, any other comments or questions about the healthcare coming into action?
Councilor, I just wanted to mention, and I mentioned this to you on our call, but we are having Aon Shop market our voluntary products, our life insurance, disability, whole life. So we will be, when we come to you, to this committee in August or September, we will be making recommendations. Right now, Cigna has our life disability. We have various companies that have our accident, whole life insurance. We have Unum, Aflac, different companies. So we are looking at that because, of course, we always want to make sure we're getting the best rates that we can. So that's we'll be coming to this committee probably late August.
All right, that sounds good. Any other questions or comments on this topic? All right, go ahead. Employee leave, family life leave.
Okay. Well, we wanted to start. We did this again last time we met. We kind of highlighted just a few what we call sort of good news stories, success stories. As you all know, the city made the decision several years ago to pay the premium for short-term disability for all our employees. We had a lot of employees who were not electing it because they didn't believe they could afford it. And if the ones who did elect it were not electing a maximum benefit. So we now cover all of our employees. Everyone's covered at 60% of their salary. And I'm going to let Kelsey kind of just talk to you about these cases. I don't know if you guys have even met Kelsey. Kelsey Erickson is our benefits coordinator. She's, fairly new to us, or certainly maybe new to you guys. So Kelsey, do you want to talk a little bit about these claims?
Yes, hi there. I'm Kelsey.
Welcome.
Thank you. So we just wanted to, highlight our short-term disability policy, which we do feel is running very well. In 2020, we had 32 approved and paid claims. So far in 2021, we have 18 that have been approved and paid through June 2nd. So I did want to just touch on 4 examples that I pulled. We have one employee who was from revenue collections. They were put out of work, unable to perform the duties of their job, and only had enough sick time to get them through the first week of their absence. Previously they had been paying, $138 annually for a $200 a week benefit. And with the short-term disability policy that we have, that employee was able to stay, receiving a payment. They was $264 more a week for a total of $464 at no cost to themselves. We did have another employee who was in police who, again, had to go out of work and had enough paid leave from sick and annual to cover the first 30 days of their absence. After that, it would have been the disability policy that they had paid for, $345 annually, and that benefit would have been $500 a week. Under our policy, they were able to receive $190 more a week for a total benefit of $690. And again, that's at no cost to themselves. We had a relatively new employee go out from our Planning, Preservation, Sustainability Department who only had enough sick time to get them through the eligibility period for the short-term disability. This was an employee, who had not signed up for a short-term disability policy because they had come after we had implemented this. But, under our short-term disability policy, it allowed them to receive a weekly benefit of $821 while out from, recovering from giving birth. She was then able to use her annual leave for her bonding portion of her leave. Last one I want to highlight is from Parks, who, again, went out of work, unable to perform the essential functions of their job, and ran out of both the time that they had accrued at the time of their absence and time that was donated to them by their fellow employees, their coworkers, approximately 6 weeks into their leave. Previously, this employee had been paying $207 annually for a $300 a week benefit. Under our current policy, this employee received $145 more per week for a total benefit of $445. And it allowed them just, be able to focus on, they got their payment, they were able to focus on getting better rather than worrying about their monetary situation. one of the things that is really wonderful about our short-term disability policy is that even if, an employee opens a claim for short-term disability and doesn't intend to actually use the benefit, it does take the burden off of the employee with, compiling their paperwork and submitting it to Cigna, because the short-term disability will actually contact the employee's physician on their behalf. So it does, aside from giving them this monetary, benefit, it also is allowing Cigna to kind of do the brunt work for the employee. It contacts their department, contacts their physician rather, and it allows the employee to focus more on, getting better and returning to work.
Any comments, any questions for Kelsey? Thank you. I really enjoy having the true to life examples. I think that really helps all of us sort of understand how valuable this is as part of our overall benefits package.
Thank you.
I agree. All right. Well, if no one else has any questions about that slide, I think we can move on to the family leave discussion. Ryan has updated the calculations. He's updated. I'm sorry, does Counselor Brady have his hand up? I can't tell. Is that a hand?
Nope.
Okay, I'm sorry. You have on my screen it shows a little hand. I didn't know if that.
Put it on Ryan on my screen, so I think it was just a random icon.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. With the family leave, as you know, I still have a what you guys through the Commission on Women had proposed a phased-in plan for the family leave. Ryan has calculated two different options just so you could, you'd have something to kind of look at as we, enter into this discussion. Option A is what you guys had recommended for 2021, the 4 weeks maternity, 4 weeks parental, and the 2 weeks caregiver option. We did, and we're calculating these numbers. It's important to note these are calculated based on just the people who actually took leave, using their leave, or going on unpaid leave. I think it's reasonable to assume these numbers, given a paid benefit, will be higher, but there's really no way for us to know. There's no factor we can put in really until we go through our first year of utilization. We're just not really going to know what the actual cost is going to be. But right now we're just basing it on the actual cases where we know people took maternity, parental, or some type of caregiver leave, which the caregiver leave is really much more difficult to estimate than the maternity. But the option B, we just calculated, just not knowing what our budget situation was going to look like, just so you could see maybe a different option of going a two weeks, 2 weeks, and 2 weeks for maternity, parental, and caregiver. Another reason we wanted to show that is the federal government, we really believe is going to implement a federal program, which of course, if they do, nobody really knows exactly what that's going to look like, when it's going to be implemented. I know it's still very much in the discussion stage, but I also think there's a lot of bipartisan support for a program like that. So when they do that, I think we would probably want to transition to that program, just because, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for us to pay for this 100% if the federal government is going to come in and use, I guess, taxpayer dollars to pay for a leave program. But that's still kind of an unknown. So the costs have increased a little bit over what we looked at, but it's, neither one of these costs I would consider a really significant cost. But again, I just would caution you that I do feel like these are low, because I think once you put in a leave paid program, it will be more, because I think you'll have more employees utilizing that benefit.
So thank you, Kay. Maybe we should just take a little step back to remember that as a committee, and our membership as a committee has not changed since a year ago, that we, as the Human Resources Committee of the Council, agreed with the recommendations or the way that this was laid out to be an incremental leave benefit that would increase a little bit every year until we got to a full set of 12 paid weeks, I think over 3 years, for each of the categories that are eligible. And so as a committee, we recommended to the full council that we go forward on that kind of incremental to full game plan. And then we also agreed as a committee that we would recommend that we not institute the first year of this coverage until 2022 budget that we're currently looking at to be working on at the end of the summer, till the end of the year, till the full council votes on the budget in December. So I think as a committee of, council representatives, that should be where we start today, jumping off from where we were a year ago. And so I'd like to open the floor for questions and comments and discussion based on that premise.
Yeah, just, things have changed considerably within the last year, budget-wise. Again, I think that this is something that is going to have to be determined when we start looking at the 22 budget in terms of how do we do the increments. And so, I think it's great, but again, I think everything is going to be contingent upon the budget and the availability of resources. I know what we did a year ago, but things are so different, as you know, Chairman Jackson.
Anyone else?
Well, you always get down to priorities, Madam Chair and my fellow council members. I mean, if you go back to that chart of trying to get to $15 an hour and not having compression, so it's basically having some pay increases throughout our whole system. What would most people say is more important? Paying for a leave program or actually increasing salaries, basically? So, when you get down to the dollars that we're able to commit to this, we'll have to make that decision. I think I could be wrong, but I think most employees would like to see an increase in their pay.
I would agree with that, Mayor. I do think that again, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I've been reading a lot, and again, there's no details, but I think that, we eventually will have a federally funded leave program. And again, I don't think it's going to happen next year. I think there'll be something that'll be coming next year. I don't think it's going to be exactly what we had in mind, but I do think there is going to be a federally funded. I think it's going to be using, I think what I read is they're planning on, I think the 1% highest earners in the country funding that program. I don't know. I'm sure that's going to be a lot of discussion about that before it actually gets realized. But I really do like the idea of having a leave program, funded that way, rather than us trying to have to, find money for it every year. I'm not opposed to this, and I hope that, hopefully our budget situation will work out to where we can maybe take a first step. But rather than having to go through all of the phases of the transition, I'm hoping by then the federal government will come through for us, and there'll be a universal benefit that everyone will be able to take advantage of. But again, there's a little ways to go with that. I understand.
We'll see.
Any other committee members want to weigh in?
I guess just a question.
Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you. I guess just a question. I mean, when we're looking at, I don't know, our exit interviews, or even when we are trying to bring in people, I guess it's a situation. I know in in my small, I don't compare anywhere near the city, but a lot of times people are leaving me over getting higher pay. And I very rarely hear that they're leaving me because somebody had better benefits. And I certainly don't have the benefits that the city does. But I guess that's kind of my question when we look at priorities. You know, when people are exiting, how many people leave because we don't have as good a family leave program or other benefits as compared to as compared to salaries, I guess.
Councilor Shealy, we did go over some really interesting stats prior to getting to here. What I can do is ask Ryan to send you this complete PowerPoint presentation so you can view it, because we do have some information, exit survey information on why employees are leaving, what the top reasons are, and I think it's good information. It is mostly pay. It's also lack of ability to move forward in the organization, and then family circumstances, which I did talk to Ryan about. Those seem to be mostly my spouse got another job, and so now I have to move to Louisiana or very family circumstances really kind of encompasses a lot of different things, but those were the top 3 reasons. And I can tell you just from my own experience, I've lost just within the past year, I've lost 3 employees, for who all 3 got higher paying jobs in private sector. And that's for a department, my size, is fairly small. It's hurt. So we've struggled more than we ever have. And that was surprising to me, because I don't know, I guess at some point during this pandemic, my thought was that there will be a lot of people looking for jobs, but the private sector seems to be booming right now. They're hiring, they're paying well, and it's hurt us as an organization. And again, I can speak to that from my own experience. It's been an issue. So we didn't, of course, and I know we couldn't have done a COLA. We were very fortunate not to have had a layoff, to be honest. I mean, I think we came pretty close, but we didn't. We held it together, but we weren't able to give any increases. We weren't able to give them cost of living or, really do anything with pay. So we're just kind of starting to slide back a little bit. So I do think pay for employees should be a priority for next year. I think if we don't do something, we're going to continue seeing the spike in the turnover, which is also, and Councilor Shealy is in the slide that we'll send to you, so you'll have that information.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Cross. I think all of us would benefit from having this entire set of slides, just to remind ourselves of all the good, data that you're contributing to us. And I guess in the frame of wanting to get to our final discussion, and I do want to vote on whether we're going to put this resolution forward to the full council. So I would say that, knowing we're going to have another meeting specifically in advance of the budget recommendations we're going to be making to the full ad hoc committee, that why don't we table this discussion until August or the early September date, and then we can put that in context with the more information that we have about your overall pay plan recommendations, the benefits. You'll have more information about cost of premium and things like that, and then fit this into the framework that you'll present to us in August. Does that work for everyone? Not try to make a decision about paid family leave right now.
That works for me.
Okay, good. And then let's go on to the final topic under new business. We don't have any old business, so this should be the final topic for us today, and unless someone has old business to bring up. That we have been delivered a resolution, and it came through the nonprofit organization AFA, and I apologize, I meant to look up the full term that AFA stands for, but essentially it's in support, it's the nonprofit that operates in the Charleston region in support of equality for LGBTQ community, and the ways that those members of our society are given equal opportunities and support around Charleston. So everyone received the resolution. What I would like to entertain is, any comments, any questions. We don't have a representative of AFA here today, I'm sorry to say, but we can talk about it. And then I would like to entertain a motion to decide if we're going to put this resolution forward as a recommendation for adoption by the full council.
Madam Chairman?
Councilmember Gregory.
Yes, I'm going to support it, but I just had a couple of questions.
Okay.
Because it seems pretty cookie cutter as opposed to tailored to the city of Charleston and the kinds of things that we've already done legislatively in our fair housing laws, our accommodation laws, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not as if the city of Charleston has not been doing things in that area. I don't know whether or not it would be appropriate to put it in the resolution, but I just wanted the record to reflect that the city of Charleston over the years have been strengthening its non-discrimination provisions to be more inclusive.
I think that's a very fair, comment. I agree that it probably was not written specifically to what the city's history has been in these types of decision-making, and asking, our state to go along with us in our principles and philosophy of human rights. So I'm sure we could agree that if we put this forward, we could ask the providers or do it ourselves to add a couple more whereas statements that would be a little more specific about our own history. I mean, it says here, then the third one down, it says we've been a leader in the protection of civil rights and preventing discrimination. So we could potentially enhance that whereas, and then it goes on to talk about the score that we received, which is the highest score ever. Charleston got an 81 out of 100 on the Human Rights Campaign Municipal Equality Index. So I think that's something that also points to our dedication to these human rights, resolutions and resolves.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it then. We'll put this forward. We can talk about whether we want to get a little more specific in writing a couple of whereases or enhancing the whereas statements that are already made here. And I'd be happy to work on that ahead of bringing it to council.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Before we conclude, can we vote on the minutes again? Because only the two of us voted on those minutes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Good suggestion. So we took a preliminary vote to approve the minutes from a year ago, August 2020. And we made it clear that for any public that's listening to us, that this committee meets as needed and primarily at the request of our human resources or other groups that want us to take some sort of decision or recommendation in our human resources mission on behalf of the city council and the city. So I'm to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Unless there's some old business that we haven't covered, then I'll entertain a vote for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
All right. Thank you. Here we go. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the hard work all of your staff. Okay,
Thank you.
really good meeting.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
We'll
everyone.
see you in August.